Okay, we're ready.
Okay.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. The meeting is started. As usual, this is a public meeting, so whenever you're speaking, please introduce yourself. I'm Peter Mason. And if there are people in the public listening, that's terrific. There is no questions. If you want to ask a question, we won't be answering it here. You can go onto our website under the ARPA initiative, and there's a DDS email address that you can send that to, and those questions will be responded to there. Approval of last month's meeting minutes. Do you have those available?
Yes, I do.
Excuse me.
So let me share again. Okay. Let me know when to scroll.
I'm okay.
Okay.
Yep, me too. Are we looking for a motion to accept the minutes?
Once they're reviewed, I think.
Got it.
Okay. Yeah. What's that? Peter receives more negative. What does that mean? More negative comments?
Yes, or
Yeah.
negative comments. Yep.
Okay.
Not me being negative.
Well, that's what I was
Everybody
wondering.
else was. I'm a positive
never
kind
negative.
of guy.
Thanks, Peter. Okay.
That's it.
That's it.
This is Peter Mason. Do we have a motion to accept?
I will make a motion to accept.
Any seconds?
I'll second that. It's Brian Holmes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those.
Aye.
Thank you. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, they are approved. Okay, so we have with us Maura Fitzgerald, who's going to present from McDowell of what's happening and from the communication side of this. Maura?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Maura Fitzgerald from McDowell Communications Group. And I'm here just to give you a brief update on what we've been doing on the communications side of things. And forgive me because I can't remember if I have spoken to this committee in the past. I think my colleague Becca Brockway might have spoken to you in a previous meeting. So if this is my first time here, it's nice to meet you all. So on the communications side, we've had a few different things going on. We worked with a survey research group and sent out 2 surveys in January and February. The first was to a subsection of DDS's individuals that they support and their families. And then the second was to DDS employees. And the purpose of the two surveys was to kind of get a baseline understanding of where each of those populations were in what they had heard about the moving on plan and what kind of their attitudes towards the plan were and towards the broader concepts of moving to more independence and using assistive technologies and things like that. So we've gotten those results back, and basically overall, on the individuals and family side, there's, understandably a low level of people who have heard of the moving on plan or know much about it, which is great because that provides us with a lot of opportunity to communicate to them because their attitudes aren't set in stone. They haven't heard too much already. But on the flip side, they kind of overwhelmingly are positive about the concept of moving to more independence. So we have a good place to start from. And on the employee side, relatively the same thing. There's a higher level of knowledge of the plan because they've been hearing about it from the commissioner and through work, but still not overwhelming numbers. Also very overwhelmingly positive about the possibilities of the program and of this transformational initiative. So we're starting from a good place with those two groups. And our goal is to repeat that survey, same populations again next year to see kind of how we've moved the needle with each of those groups over the course of the year. We are also currently working with a production company to put together a series of 7 videos. There'll be short videos that will kind of showcase different technologies or supports that are going to be available to individuals to kind of help them move to a more independent level. We're working with a few of the provider groups, and I think a few of you are on the call. So thank you very much for the assistance that you've already given us. We're hoping to get those videos filmed in the next week or so and then edited. And our hope is before the end of the month, we'll be able to start releasing those videos, and they'll be going out on a variety of different channels. So we'll keep you posted on that and when that is coming along. We've been working on a communications plan, which we've shared with the ARPA leadership team and the individuals and families in DDS employment committees of the ARPA teams. And that plan is for the next 6 months. It has lots of different activities and things that we'll be doing to communicate mainly to individuals and families, DDS staff, and then other stakeholders that DDS needs to communicate with. And we'll also be working with Deloitte, who are dealing with the provider side of things. So we'll be doing stuff with them as well. And that kind of brings me to the first of the kind of proactive and global communications that is going to be going out relatively soon. And that is a newsletter that is going to become a bi-monthly newsletter. So every other month, we're going to send out a newsletter. It will be mailed to all of the individuals within the DDS system. It's going to be emailed to DDS staff, emailed to providers, and sent to other stakeholders for DDS. This first one is kind of an overall kind of summary of what has been going on kind of through last summer and fall with kind of ARPA and the transformation program. So it's going to be, especially for the individuals and families, kind of an introduction to the transformation process and what is happening. And as part of that, one of the big things that we are going to be, or the commissioner is going to be announcing in this newsletter, I'm just going to share my screen, is, and I believe it was discussed in your last meeting that you all had, the concept of now that we're moving into a more public phase, would it be rebranded as something different? So after a lot of discussion, we have decided that as we move to make our communications more public facing, we're going to be calling this the Transformation Initiative STEP, which stands for Supporting Transformation to Empower People. And it's really kind of signaling that we're moving into a more public phase. It's moving to a name that has a little more resonance for the individuals. And there's a few different things that we can do to play with it, but it's really going to represent the bedrock of the DDS system. It represents DDS's mission and values and goals of helping people to step towards more independent living and independent working situations. It's going to encompass everything that DDS and the providers are going to be offering to people and helping people to move into in order to become more independent. So the assistive technologies, other supports, other services. And the whole kind of point of this is this step is going to outlive the current ARPA funding. These are initiatives that are going to continue on long after the federal funding that DDS has received to get this off the ground is no longer available. So it's really kind of DDS's commitment to it continuing to help people to step into a more independent living and working situation. And then I tried to embed the newsletter in here. It didn't really work. So hopefully I can show it to you. Can you see the newsletter, or are you still seeing my other screen?
I can see something.
Okay.
We just see your little square, but it doesn't have the full newsletter.
Okay.
It's
Let's see.
coming.
There we go. Now
There it
can
is.
you see it?
Now,
Okay.
we
Yes.
can-
All right. I don't know if it's big enough to see, but just to give you a flavor, and as I said, the providers and other stakeholders probably on this call are, and probably this entire committee will be getting this newsletter. But it's got a note from the commissioner, so that introduces the Moving On initiative. We decided that in order to make this accessible to people whose primary language is Spanish, this newsletter has been translated into Spanish and has been uploaded to the DDS website. So this QR code here, people can snap it on their phone, and it will go straight to this same exact newsletter, same exact layout, but in Spanish on the DDS website. But just to give you a flavor for what it looks like, because like I said, you will be getting this soon. The English version of this newsletter is currently at the printers and will be sent to a mail house sometime next week. And then it'll be about 3 to 5 days before it hits the mailboxes of the individuals and families. So the commissioner's office is going to be emailing this out to DDS staff and providers and stakeholders prior to that, I think probably the end of this week or early next week, so that you all have this information before individuals and families do, so that if you start getting questions from them, you know what they know, and you have the information in advance. And I'll stop presenting. And that's
This is
what we
Peter
have
Mace.
going
Can
on.
I just jump in
Sure.
for a sec, Maura?
Of course.
One of the things that we're doing this through the mail, obviously, so it's a hard copy. We know that is not a sustainable method to do for the long run. And so we're starting this now, but we need to get as many people as possible, families, individuals, all the stakeholders, on a database that has email address, so that we can start converting this more to electronic. We may at some point have to do some hard copy and mostly emails to try to get through this, but our goal is to make this all electronic, Because if we can move to that, then we can do this on a sustainable way that could be done on a regular basis going forward.
And this is Maura Fitzgerald from McDowell. Just one last thing from me. The videos that I mentioned earlier and a lot of the activities that we're going to be doing are really designed to help individuals and their families and their guardians kind of see the possibilities for themselves and, you know, what they could do more independently and, you know, what they could do with some supports. So one of the other things that we are going to be doing is we're going to start putting together short spotlights of individuals who've had success in becoming a little more independent, or, you know, they have started using a new technology and it's worked out great for them. And they will just be short little things with a picture and probably a little write-up, maybe a little video if we have time to do it. And those types of things will be available on a section of the DDS website. We can put them out on social media. We'll get them into the hands of the caseworkers, the case managers, and we can also get them to providers. And that way, they're just short things that you know, a case manager could say to one of the people that they're working with. Hey, you know, I know that you know, here's something that might benefit you, and here's a little story of someone who's also using this, and, you know, so they can start to see it in themselves that these are possibilities for them. So saying that just to say to you, especially to the providers who are in this committee, if you think of people who would be good candidates for someone that we could talk to, or, you know, talk to their family, or, you know, or talk to you all about how they're doing, so we can start to kind of build a library of these success stories and then get them out into the public. You know, please, I'll put my email address in the chat, and you're welcome to email me with any suggestions or ideas you had. Our initial thought was that we would start with the self-advocate coordinators, but I figured while I have your ears, I would also throw it out to all of you. If you have any people or any topics too that you think would be good for us to cover, you know, please feel free to reach out to me, because I would be more than happy to talk to you and hear about it and start building this reservoir of stories that we can have for people to read and use. And thank you very much all for your time.
I like
Thank you,
that
Maura.
it said, oh, it's Heather.
No, I said, thank you, Maura. Heather, you can go ahead.
Heather from Americas.
We can't hear you.
Oh, my volume's
That-
not been working.
Just go, stay where you are, nice and close. That's it. Works.
Does this work?
That works. You can back up just a little bit.
It's time to use my ARPA technology dollars, I think. I like that it has the myth, like what it's not and what it is, right on it. I really like that idea. Thank you.
This is Maura from McDowell Communications Group. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, we wanted to make sure, you know, because and we saw it in the survey, a lot of the kind of fear and, you know, misinformation about this is that, you know, DDS is looking to close all the group homes. So we just wanted to just kind of nip it right in the bud.
This is Peter
Any
Mason.
other?
Anybody else have any questions? Well, we've got Maura.
Oh, Kathy's on.
Nothing? Really? Nothing? Wow. One of the things that McDowell is also working on is they're working on a communications plan, and we're reviewing that now to try to get ahead so that we know what's going to be coming up over the coming months. And so we're working through that, and as we have some kind of more definitive process, our plan, we hopefully will be able to start sharing what are some of the things that we'll be doing coming forward.
This is Pam Fields from Mid-State ARC. I just wanted to say that I think it's very positive to be communicating with the families and the DDS staff. And I really like the idea of the follow-up survey, because I think that might catch some of the issues that happen when people are either resistant, and maybe it can help us do different types of communication to, you know, iron it out and just not forget that they're there and not understanding.
This is Peter Mason. We heard a whole gambit of responses for why are we doing this survey? You know, people don't know what we're talking about, so why do this survey? And what we found is that yes, people didn't know what we were talking about, but it also spurred them on to start asking questions as to what are you talking about? What is this? So, you know, it not only did it give us a baseline, but it also started the conversation as to what this whole piece is and why we're doing this. And it gives us now a reason to continue, not a reason, but allows us to continue and to keep building on as building blocks as we keep going with this, moving on to now the STEP program. The STEP initiative helps us now have a label to this that we don't have to change when we get to the end of the ARPA period, that this will just be something that just keeps going on. So, and you know, DDS used to do family, individual and family newsletters a long time ago, and they were always very popular, and it stopped because of budget cuts and not being able to get it out into the mail in a way that wasn't expensive, and we're only more expensive now. So that's why the more we can get more people onto the electronic version, the more sustainable this will be. Okay, anybody else have any questions?
This is Pam Fields from Mid-State ARC. I also think adding other, not just the emails, but doing it through social media avenues for the families, or, you know, blogs or something that they can go to and find the information. So maybe there's a chat room or something that's on DDS or on somewhere on the Facebook page that they can go to and see what's going on too, in case they're not getting, you know, if they're not getting it through the email, maybe they want to, you know, jump on the website or social media and get it. I just think doing it through every channel we can do it, I think we'll hit hopefully most people.
This is Maura Fitzgerald from McDowell, and that's the plan. We are going to be using all the channels that we can possibly use. One of the questions that we did ask in the survey of the individuals and families was, you know, how do you usually get your, you know, news from DDS? And the overwhelming response was through snail mail or their case manager. But that could be because that's how they've traditionally been communicated with. So we are going to try all these different modalities to get it out to them. And hopefully we can build up the email list over at DDS so that it's strong enough so that we can kind of transition a little bit away from doing things through snail mail and be able to send more communications out through emails and social media and that sort of thing.
This is Pam Fields from Mid-State. Maura, I think also one of the things that we might want to explore with communication is that all of the providers do outreach to their stakeholders. Like we do stakeholder meetings, we hold them both through Zoom and in person to educate people. And I wonder if we didn't try to do some kind of a community where we were sharing those opportunities throughout the state for people, just to open it up for more people to have access, because if you're trying to educate your families on independent living or on clusters or on employment or on benefits, we have a family meeting coming up next week or in 2 weeks that to talk about the families transitioning to independent employment and how does that affect your benefits. And I think if we find a way to open those up to more stakeholders, it might be helpful so that we're not all repeating the same thing. Maybe, I don't know, something like that.
This is Maura from McDowell Communications Group. No, that's a really good suggestion, and I know that Kevin Bronson over at DDS and the DDS leadership team have talked about different ways to engage providers and also other stakeholders who have contact with the individuals and families to, make sure that we kind of all are sharing the same information and because you all have a much closer contact with individuals and families. So we want to make sure that you have all of the information that we're getting out to them and out to the DDS staff.
Just this is Peter Mason, as a small example of how transformative we're trying to make some of this going forward. Just having McDowell here has really put a spotlight on our website. And so now we're looking at how do we change the website and what can we do to make that a little bit more user friendly. So, as we hit these different pieces, there's these tentacles that come out that we can then start addressing other places to, hopefully expand how we communicate to people in a much broader way, using some of the stuff that we already have, but maybe in a different fashion. So.
Yeah, and this is Maura Fitzgerald from McDowell. DDS is working right now with a design and web development team at the Department of Administrative Services to kind of revamp the entire DDS website to make it more visually appealing and user friendly. And we at McDowell are hopefully in the next week or two going to be working with DDS and also with the Department of Administrative Services web development team to build a step-specific web page on the DDS website, because obviously changing the entire DDS website is going to take a long time. So we have found a contractor who has experience dealing with the platform that the state uses for its website, because it's not I'm not a website person, but it's not the kind of web platform that most places use. So it's not GoDaddy or anything like that. So that person is going to start building kind of a step ARPA initiative page that will be more visually appealing and accessible for providers and individuals and families and members of the public, people that are going to be going onto the website and looking for information about the STEP program. So that is going on at the same time that the overall DDS website is being revamped.
Okay, great. Thank you, Maura.
Sure. Thank you. Nice to see you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Next
So-
on the agenda.
The next on the agenda is updates from DDS. But I was just wanting, Peter, this is Pam Fields from Midstate, make a comment about, I know we have a statewide AT conference sponsored by DDS and the Connecticut Tech Act coming up in June. And I wonder if there isn't a way to have some more communication even there for people, either booths or something, maybe a step booth or a moving on booth, something where people can get, because people always fall through the cracks, like you'll all of a sudden hit somebody and they don't know what you're talking about. So making it maybe visible there if a lot of people are going to be going to that to get ideas. It's just a thought to.
No, that's a great idea. Let me write that down. What happens when you don't have your own desk? My old office, but nothing is mine. Great, thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna be looking at my document to go by. So if anybody raises their question, Pam, you can just let me know. All
Okay,
right?
got it.
All right. So this is Peter Mason. So one of the things that we're working on, which is more of the technical piece of it, we're looking at a document that's called Appendix K. And when we started this whole initiative, we had to submit this Appendix K, which is actually a document that describes all the different incentives that we do and gets approval from CMS. What we're working on is an amendment to that will assist in terms of some more of the initiatives that we're looking at. And because we didn't spend what we thought we would for this fiscal year, so we're trying to put that into next fiscal year. And our hope is that also we can get it into the FY25 budget. We're pretty confident we can, but it is a legislative thing, so we have to go through that process. So then we're trying to redistribute what we didn't spend this year into the next couple of years, which will allow us to provide some additional incentives for providers. So for example, one of the things that we're looking at doing is there's an outcome payment for individuals who transition out of a CLA or a CRS into an individualized, less congregate setting. But there's no counterpart for day. So one of the things we're trying to do is add that into the day program. So people who move out of a congregate work setting would then get a incentive payment for that. I don't have specifics. I just wanted to let you know that that's what we're doing. We thought that this was going to be a simple process where we just had to work with CMS and make those changes. As this is still something new to CMS, they originally said, yeah, that's no big deal, just let us know. And then about a month ago, they told us that we had to go through the whole public hearing part of it. So it's kind of put us even more behind in terms of getting these changes done. We're pretty much finished with what we want to do. And we'll be trying to schedule a public hearing probably in May at this point, because it takes a while to get those set up. In terms of phase one, we are working on a couple of frequently asked questions that we were receiving from providers who have been attending the open forums that Deloitte has been providing on Fridays. There's agencies that have been coming that did not even put in that they're through the survey that they were interested. So we're getting a whole variety of people who are coming in and asking questions. So we're working on a frequently asked questions document. It's going to start with a few questions, and it's going to try to be a living document. We'll keep adding and amending it as we go forward. We are expecting a couple of submissions this week, and we're looking forward to those. It's critical we get some so that we can see what providers are planning to do, what they see has been the pros and cons. And so if there's things that we can change for when we do start into the second phase, we can add those changes into the transition plans. One of the big things that's happening is we're working with we've seen a rough draft from Deloitte in terms of their analysis of the DDS system. As with any consultant, they always have their own method or ways of presenting this. And so for Deloitte, they've set it up as transformational aims. So instead of the overall goal, they have transformational aims. And there's one for residential, there's one for day. And then underneath that, there's a number of objectives, which they call levers, change levers and ideas. And so we got to look at those. What the next step is that they'll then be looking at what they call the targets and activities. And that's kind of going to be the meat of it all, where all the different pieces of what DDS can and should do. We anticipate, only because of all the feedback they've got from providers and from other states and from individuals and families, it's going to be a lengthy document, and the activities that's going to be there will be what DDS needs to change the system. We have talked about some of them. So for example, benefit counselors will be one of those that's in there. And we've talked about that. And DDS has already started those conversations with our sister agency at BRS in terms of what that could look like. There's other things like having an employment specialist within the state job centers, and looking at that. We'll looking at some of the residential, a lot of the stuff regarding assistive technology and those kind of pieces. So we're pretty excited to see this come out. But as we know, it's taking them a little bit to put this together, and it's going to take some time for DDS to plow through. So we're trying to get ahead of that a little bit. One of the things that we'll talk about later is until we have an idea of that document coming out, Pam and I had thought that it probably would be a good thing to skip our next meeting and schedule it for the meet. We'll skip the next meeting and attend the one after that. And our hope is that at that point we'll be pretty close, if not having the DDS, the Deloitte recommendations. And then our committee can go and start reviewing those and providing their input to it. One of the things in their first presentation was it was a very dry presentation, and it was a typical, here it is, what do you think? And so one of the things that we are trying to look at is how to make that a little bit more spicier in terms of, hey, there's some really good things in there, because we don't want to turn the audience off right from the start just because it's so voluminous that you can't even figure out where everything is. So we're trying to figure out, as part of this will also be, how do we present it to make sure people know that there's some big changes in there, and that makes them really want to go through that to see what items are in there.
Peter, this is Pam Fields from Midstate. I had one question. When you talked about the benefits counselors, which I think is so needed in our state, are they going to do something like a train the trainer so that the agencies will have trained benefit counselors in there to really tag people on a daily basis? Because I think if they try to do it just from one office, there's going to be a lag. And it would be so nice to be able to have it in each agency where as a family at a meeting, you know, comes across that they're really concerned about it, somebody at the agency can really get in there and work on that from the beginning.
Yeah, and I think, there's a host of things that we're looking at. My idea would be that because that is a responsibility of BRS, it has to stay with them. So our idea is if we could have them hire another person and then have that person be housed out of DDS. And at that point, then that person then could be a train the trainer and also be there to help move some of the more unique situations, because there'll be a direct link with BRS at that point, since they would be technically a BRS staff. So we're trying to figure out how to do that. And we've done that in certain circumstances with DSS in terms of having DSS workers within DDS, which has really been beneficial for people's benefits, regular benefits. So that's the kind of thing we're looking at doing. So. Anybody else have any questions on that? So one of the things that once the plan does get completed, Deloitte is also working on a communications plan. And so how this is going to work is Deloitte and McDowell's will work together, but McDowell will be concentrating on the communication to individuals and DDS staff, and Deloitte will be concentrating on communication with the regional administration staff of DDS and providers. And so they'll be looking at setting up training sessions, virtual training sessions, recording those for people to be able to see documents and written material. So that, that's all kind of be part of that plan as this comes out as to how then do we start communicating what we found.
Peter, this is Pam from Midstate. Just a clarification for my minutes. Deloitte is going to do providers and DDS instead of McDowell doing DDS?
McDowell is going to do DDS staff and basically the general DDS staff and
Okay.
And case managers and individuals and families. Deloitte will be more with the regional administration staff.
Okay.
And the private providers. So that those that are getting submitting the plans and those that are actually reviewing them will be communicated through Deloitte.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep. So this is Peter Mason again. So we had that presentation on shared housing. And so I brought the back about the communication of, how do we get this expanded? So we're having discussions of being able to see if we can add this to one of the fourth Tuesday presentations. It may be in a couple months or something, but to get so that people can hear that presentation about the shared housing piece. I just wanted to follow up with that. And a couple other things. The website for the self-determination, individuals who self-determine their funds and hire their own staff was supposed to be available for March 1st, but they ran into a technical glitch. And so we know that some of the changes have been made and are available, but the bulk of it is not yet. So I'm trying to get a new estimated date of when that will be started. For AT, for assistant technology grants, we had 19 individuals have submitted a request so far, and we've had 5 providers who have submitted assistive technology grants, so we're working through that. The grant opportunity for day programs, which is for assistive technology within a day program, and that's supposed to be issued next week. And lastly, we have our non-project based supported housing grant, or non-projects based supportive housing notice of opportunity. We've issued frequently asked questions, we've answered those, and we've received a lot of feedback, and hopefully that's positive. And that we're looking at next week is the due date. So we're really looking forward that we'll get a couple agents that will put in for it, so we can try to work through the issue of doing a non-project based, which the difference for those who may not remember, a project based is one that starts from the beginning, from the ground up, working with the developer and the provider, and it usually takes them a couple of years for an apartment complex to be built. And so this non-project base would be for those agencies, those apartment complexes that are already in existence, and us to work through what that would take to allow us to establish a supportive housing grant within those. And that is my update.
This is Pam Fields from Midstate. I just wanted to share a piece of information. There's a national, through our Anchor trade organization, there's a national housing committee that meets, and Kat, who does our cluster and our independent living, has been participating in that. And they were so impressed with how she presented that she's going to be presenting at the next national meeting on Connecticut's independent living and what we're doing. So
wow, that's fantastic.
Very excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi, this is Brian Holmes, parent. Peter, you mentioned shared housing, and I find those fourth Tuesday things very interesting. I do join in those unless they're very good. Is there any documentation on shared housing? You mentioned a while ago about a paper describing how it would work. You know, as a parent, I'm kind of interested in it.
So this came about because we're still working through the issue of, this is Peter Mason, we're still working through the issue of shared living. And some people are equating shared housing and shared living. And so I kind of came up with this term shared housing. So it's out of my head, because while we're still working with the shared living piece, there's still this other part where families are looking at the option of trying to purchase a house or a setting for their son or daughter, and how that would work. And so I presented that here in that committee. I don't know if you were here on that day that I was here, regarding related party and all that kind of stuff. So there's nothing we have formal, because it's something that we may want to look at. How do we move forward with this? I know we are looking at the shared living, and it's been taking too long, so we're trying to figure out a way to speed that up. So we're working on some options with that. But in the meantime, we've heard of many individuals and families are looking at purchasing their house. So, there are those. There's issues regarding the related party transactions, because now that there's somebody who owns the house and their family member lives there, they can't profit from their son or daughter for living in there, which is not their intention, but is something that needs to be looked at to make sure that from the outside, people don't think we're taking advantage of our individuals. And so that whole related party piece is a big part of that shared housing part of it. And then, all the different other pieces to it. So I think as we look at how to present this at the fourth Tuesday, that may then help us spur us on to get something that's a little bit more formal than just the rambling memory of an old man. So.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. It's Brian Holmes. I did hear your presentation before that, so I was wondering if anything more would be informative.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, this is Heather from Marrakesh. Just to piggyback on shared housing and shared living. In a couple of my cases of people that are involved in shared living, there is also shared housing too, where we had to get the ethics committee and make sure that the rent works. And in one case, it's a young man who lives in his own house that his parents purchased, and he has a companion. So it's basically CCH, but in his own home instead of the CCH person's home. So that's that bit of it. And then the other
Oh, we're losing you again, Heather.
one,
No, we're losing you.
Uh-oh.
We lost her completely. Oh,
Oh,
there
yeah,
she
she's
is.
back.
She's back. Oh,
is it
no,
working or no?
now you are.
That is so weird. It's how I'm holding my computer. It's time to throw the computer in the garbage. But sorry, the other we also have shared living where the two individuals rent the apartment as well. So there's no conflict of interest. It's from an outside landlord. So it's not that the family has to have means to purchase a home. So it's shared living because they share their apartment with someone instead of having an overnight person there and shift there. But they rent their apartment with a different landlord and get, we do the ethics even for the, make sure that it's fair market value for anyone who's receiving rent subsidy anyway. So we do that for that. I don't know if that helps, but.
This is
Or
Pam Field
confuses
from
it.
Mid-State. I wonder if it would help, Heather, if you did like a white page on each of those and how you perceive them and do them, because you've been doing them longer. And then when they look at doing that Thursday group, maybe they would see any nuances on those pages that they either want to cover or clarify or something like that. Would that help, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, if they do it, if they're gonna do it on shared housing, they're not gonna do it on shared living. DDS's concern is that though we're really excited about that program, it's very unique to the individual and the family, and the concern of Department of Labor laws to make sure people get paid for the hours they're supposed to in a way that also is cost effective has been one of those things that we keep trying to figure out how to do. And so until we do that, we don't want to go crazy in terms of, oh, anybody can do shared living, because that issue of, oh yeah, we'll just pay the person a couple $100 a week and have them be there, and they're providing supports, 18 hours a day and only getting a couple hours a week, is not going to go over well with the Department of Labor. So, it has to be, how do we work through those issues? And it's been one of the things we kind of stymied at. So one of the things that we're looking at is how do we get how do we research how other states are actually doing shared living and what they call it? A lot of other states call shared living is actually their community companion homes. And so they call that shared living. And, so we have to make sure that that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this other piece. And though that may be a part of it, there may be an individual who's in a CCH that also gets supports from the provider and also gets supports from the family. We may need to sit there and figure out, do we need that as a different name? Do we need that as a different kind of service? How does that work? And so we have all these different things out there that some of them maybe we may consider as a CRS that's doing shared living. Some of them we may call as a CCH. Some of them may be an actual shared living of what we thought it would be, but we just haven't got a great handle on it. And so that's why we want to see how other states do this. And we don't anticipate this to be a panacea for everything. You know, there's probably going to be, these are going to be situations that are unique, that aren't for everybody. And, you know, that just as it says shared living, that means there's a responsibility of those supports from a number of people. And you know, whether the individual can stay on their own sometimes, whether the family's going to participate on some of those hours, whether there's a provider that's involved, whether there's somebody who's staying in the house and that, you know, they're an overnight, they stay there for the overnight, where the individual may not need supports unless they get up for some reason. And at that point, then, you know, that would come into play. So it's something that, we need as an option, but I don't think it's for everybody. You know, it has to have, it's got to be that right situation for the right people. Whereas the shared housing is something that if a family wants to purchase a house with another individual and they get IHS hours for some of those hours, that can be done. It just has to figure out what the property piece to it and how that works and the lease piece to it. And, you know, it still comes down to whether the families have the resources to do that. That's always my concern, is that we are a Medicaid program, so it's supposed to be for people who are basically poverty. And, you know, to have people buying houses, the individual may not have any money, but their family may, and that gives them a leg up over somebody whose family doesn't have that same option. And so, you know, we have to, on our end, we have to make sure that how this is designed is in a way that is a benefit for those families, but they don't get anything extra from it than somebody who doesn't have the same their family doesn't have the same means. So. You know, when people think of our services, they don't always think of the Medicaid portion of it. And, you know, when you think of Medicaid, it's if you go into a hospital and you need to be able to, you have to be charged the same rate there as you would be any other hospital. And so it can't be that you live in Greenwich, that you go to the hospital, so the appendicitis is going to cost you $5,000 because you're going to get these wonderful doctors, and you go to Hartford and it's going to cost you $3,000, but these doctors are just coming right out of school and have no experience. It's got to be the same. And so we're the same, we're on those same kind of conditions, is that it has to be a level playing field across the board. So thus, when you hear us talk about rates and why the rates need to be one rate for same person of the same level of need, it's that same kind of thing. You know, and we don't allow an individual to go to one agency and take our rate, and then the provider or the family then gives more money to that provider for that service, because that would give it a leg up for that individual. It's you take the rate and that's all you get. There's nothing preventing the family from making donations. We can't stop that, but if it can't be tied to the rate. Okay, Pam, what else we got next?
There was just, the only last thing was other concerns and topics. If anybody had anything else they wanted to bring up.
So one of the things, is we've done a lot. And one of the things I've been remiss on is the frequently asked questions, especially the stuff that we've already talked about. And so that's on my list. So my goal is before we meet again, that I get through all those and be able to submit that. I guess what I always thought that this committee would be also is assist us in terms of other areas that we need to address that will help move the system forward. And so I can't tell you what those things are. If I did, I would have tried starting them a long time ago. And that's why we need, people on this committee to be bringing those issues or suggestions to us to see, what we can do to move the system forward, especially in residential areas while we have this committee going. So.
And Peter, this is Pam Fields from Midstate, and I think one of the big things for providers is that, and I found this with the transformation plan, is that we were on the path going in that direction anyway. And then the requirements from DDS to create the plan and do the budget took so much time and energy away from something we were already doing. And I was sitting there at one point saying, is this really worth the incentives? I could have just done it anyway. And so I think sometimes, and I know it's hard to get around that with, regulations and state and CMS, but I think as we move forward, DDS really has to look at the extra burdens that all of these things place on the providers, because that's usually the reason that people don't want to continue or participate, because it just gets onerous. It just gets so much, and you're so short of resources. It's like it's easier for us to just move instead of doing all of the other stuff around it. So it's in a method, I guess. I don't know, Heather, you could probably add to that.
Hi, this is Heather. I don't know if you could hear me.
Yep, we can.
Can you? Okay. I think Pam took the words out of my mouth. We have such little resources. We're trying to figure out, we have some vacancies, we have some plans, we have great strategic plans, but honestly, the bandwidth and the amount of people that we have that we could say, here, you're now in charge of the STEP program. You have to fill this out. You have to speak to everybody involved. You have to monitor it. I really honestly don't have anyone to assign that to. And this is what we're trying to do anyway. So, and we're not sure. So if we get the money, like the biggest amount of money we need is for landlords in the community right now. We have 3 landlords that are looking for money for people to live in their places in the community. And, for things, wear and tear, or, specialized wear and tear, maybe I should say.
Uh-oh.
And this money, and we have a deficit, and it's just like, it will happen. We know it will happen. It's actually been happening. I kept wishing that we had this data from 10 years ago, because for the past 10 years, people with loan levels of 4 or 5 or 3, they're not moving into group homes. Like we really started this, a while ago. And we're trying to make it faster, I guess, I assume, and we're just trying to get it to go faster. And after COVID, it's just really hard for us to do it faster because we don't have the resources and the person to assign to do that. I don't have anyone to assign to it, honestly.
And those are good comments, because you know, it's not that we intentionally wanted to make this complex plan, but we also knew that we had to have something that would help us narrow people down into what we're actually looking for. I'll bring that back to Deloitte and see what we can do to kind of minimize some of this. You know, we just have to make sure, it's a lot of money, that we have to make sure that there's a trail as to what happened, you know, why, you know, are we sure that it happened? And so that, you know, if anybody ever questions it, that there'd be a plan that shows, yeah, no, see, they followed their plan, this is why they got it. So I think that's kind of some of the things that we have to deal with on our end.
And
So
this is Pam Fields from Midstate. And so we finished our plan and submitted it. And I mean, obviously it felt better once it was done and off my desk. Now it's in GDS's hands. But the process was really painful for the agency. It was my staff were angry. They're, you know, they're like, you're dragging us along. We're tired. Stop making us do all this stuff. So it just, it's not that they don't believe in the process and where it wants to go. And I think that's a lot with a lot of the providers. They believe we want to be there. It's just, how do we get there and not destroy the little resources we have left because everybody's so exhausted.
yeah, I know, like, one of the things we're looking at, which I won't solve the problem, but hopefully it will make a little difference, is one of the things that we're looking at with this Appendix K change would be to pay providers a incentive payment if they end up and have their plan approved. There would be an incentive bonus that they would receive for just doing the plan itself. And so, you know, not a lot of consolation, but, you know, trying to get providers at least a little bit more money to help with some of this burden.
And this is Pam from Midstate, and that could help with the next phase where people could say, okay, I can front that money knowing that when the plan gets approved, you know, I can get somebody to help, knowing that there's an incentive for that.
Yeah, and this would be retroactive to anybody who put a plan in after February 1st. So if you put a plan in after February 1st, then this would be retroactive to it, so. That's why we're trying to get this out so people can see what we're talking about, but it's been taking us longer than we wanted, because there's some other good things that are in there that we help, you know, will help in terms of some of the stuff.
Peter, this is Tammy from DDS. And as much as I am in support of this, and I really want to see this happen, it is interfering with age outs being placed and supports being given to those that we are trying to, that we need to find supports for so they can leave their kids' homes. So it really is interfering with age outs. Even if we want to put an age out in a location like this, it's not available. They're not yet open. This isn't, you know, again, I'm going to go back with, it's great to give incentives to do this type of independent living, but there are no incentives to backfill beds and to take the more challenging individuals. So I just want to make sure that I know I've said it before, but I need to say it again. If we're looking for feedback, we're getting stuck with age outs that are getting older and older in homes with children. And then we don't have places for kids to go that need it. And, you know, other state agencies we're working with don't care that we have these incentive programs, and, you know, they're not the cheerleaders that we are, that know how good this is going to be for everybody in the future. And I really do believe this is going to be great for everybody in the future. So I just want to make sure that we don't forget those that we're already needing to serve that can't be served because this is taking place. And at some point, we really do need to look at teaming with DCF on starting some of these programs younger and starting some, really concentrated programs on teaching people to live independently. And it's just something we don't do now in partnership with DCF for those kids that are in foster care or for those kids that they have placed outside of the family home. So it's just, I know I said it before, but I just feel when we talk about what's going on, those are actually today problems of what this project has done to today's problems. It's creating a lot of problems because we can't serve those that we need to serve.
Yeah, and I get that, and my hope is that as this starts to flow and people start moving out of homes, that we then have agencies that are willing to work with some of the individuals who need more medical and behavioral needs to help fill those vacancies, that then we could work through those agencies to find the placements for them.
But Peter, people are closing homes. They're not keeping them open. They're moving those staff from those homes to, and I get it. I understand it. And staffing is tough.
But Tammy, they're doing that anyways without the plan. I mean, they're doing that anyways. I haven't seen all the, I mean, as I said, we haven't seen any plans in. So if we see plans that all they're doing is closing, then we got to figure out something. But that's, I haven't seen anything, so all those closures are happening anyways, because the providers don't have the staff to go forward with this or to go forward, so they have to consolidate now just to maximize their staff. So I don't know if that's necessarily the plan. I don't know if that providers are holding off until they submit the plan that they're going to look at this. I don't know that at this point, and I don't know if this is the result of the staffing shortage, a result of our initiative. And I don't know as we go forward that if people do move from congregate to non-congregate, does that then begin to start opening up some of those spaces for individuals to move into? I don't know that answer yet. So I get the frustration. I understand it. I just don't think I have enough information or I have enough data to know where that's coming from. So, Pam?
We have a question from Heather. I'll let Heather go first and then I'll follow up.
Hi, it's Heather from Marrakesh. Tammy, we actually just noticed that, and we just took a licensed DCF group home and we're switching it to a transition home so people won't get kicked out at 21. So DDS will be able to send us referrals, and we are looking transition. So we're looking at the DEMIS model where we have young adult group homes, and the goal is for them to eventually move out on their own, and they have to move out at 26. We know 21-year-olds, typical with disabilities, whatever, that's a very young age to be living on your own anyway these days. So we switched it over so we won't have more. We had one person that was going to have to move out and find another placement in the DDS system. So I'm hoping that will be part. So that's something creative that we're doing with DDS that doesn't fall into this plan, but I think it's a perfect piece of programming to add to the plan, which is make sure that people know that they'll have a home and they'll learn the independent skills. And then they're at an agency that already provides IHS. So it's not assumed that they're going to go into a group home. They might end up in an IHS setting, and we could train and teach and set that up between the years, until they're 26. So I'm hoping that will solve both ends of that problem. And if it works, this is only three beds, but if that works and gets eventually accepted into, this is good. It's a transition home. So families and people don't expect to be living in a CLA. They're more expecting to learn the skills they need to live independently, that will help in our big picture transition for younger people in the system already.
I heard about that and I'm very excited. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you.
And Tammy, that may be something that the department wants to take a look at is, do we need more of these transition houses to set up? And if that's the case, then that doesn't necessarily have to be through the ARPA initiative. That could be DDS's initiative in terms of, an RFP to get these things going. Pam?
Yeah, this is Pam from Midstate, and I just want to add to that just our experience. So we have several complex behavioral people in our agency that we're really struggling with as we hire staff with high school diplomas that don't have a background in mental health or behavioral challenges, and we're expecting them to run these complex behavior programs, and it's failing and we're struggling. So we really backed up, and we're one of the providers that said we're not going to take challenging people at this time. But in the meantime, what we're doing is we have two initiatives. One where our clinical director has created a mental health training program for all our staff. That's a certificate program that they're going through this year. And we also entered in the training with Kleinberg, I always say it wrong, Center for Trauma Informed Care, which is an 18-month program. And like Heather, we're having trouble with a property. So hopefully it will open next spring, our first transition house, and then converting another group home that's not really suited for people with, right now, for people with complex behavioral issues or medical issues, and transitioning that and rebuilding it. I'm sorry, I'm not renovating it. Thank you. To make it into like studio apartments, but it's in a CLA setting to able to handle people with complex issues. So, and we started this way before the plan came out because we see that we're just really struggling. And as the staffing issues continue to be a challenge, it seems that it was just collapsing on us. So we understand what you're saying, and we get that the capacity is not there. But I think one of the things we need to concentrate on is how do we build that capacity within our system? How do we train these staffs and to be able to handle these complex individuals? Otherwise, people are just not going to take them because it just blows up on us.
I now want to take the training with you, Pam.
You're welcome to. I told the South region we have it, and they're welcome to come in and sit in on it anytime.
We're also working with Klingberg too. Yeah.
Nice.
Kathy?
Hi, it's Kathy Kalo, DDS. I agree with everything that's being said. I think it's a double-edged sword, whereas as much as we're trying to place kids out, they end up staying in the home due to lack of transition into other adult type programs. So I do agree with Tammy. I think it has to start from proper planning at a younger age and helping through the steps of that transition process. I also see the other end of it where people are aging in place. You want them to be able to age in place and have that accessibility in their own home and be able to do move on into their golden years in their home, right? So I guess I just feel like I'm sort of validating everybody's concerns. And the fact of the matter is, just going back to Pam, putting these things together and then putting the budget together, the last thing we want to do is deter people from continuing to move forward because of the paperwork or whatever we have to do on our end to assure that things are met. So I get it. I just want to, it's more about a validation of our own, I guess I'm critiquing our own DDFs at times, right?
All right, so we are a little over, I think, or we're 5 minutes shorter, right? When does this go?
We have 2
3:30?
minutes. Is it
2 minutes, okay. So I think our next
Oh, 5
meeting is, when's our next meeting then? It won't be till the
Our
30th
next meeting will be on April
April.
20th, right? No, it will be on April 6th.
April 6th, okay. So we'll try to make sure we put that as part of the minutes.
I just added it.
Great. So in the meantime, your homework is, what else do you need us to do? What else would you want DDS to do? Great. All right, everybody, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.